Thanks for joining me once again. Still TMI this morning on ITV, reaching you live from Benin City, Nigeria. So just in case you're watching from any part of the world, it's with great pleasure welcome you right here. Okay, time for us to discuss some, really, I think it's one of the issues trending right now. President Buhari unveiled or disclosed plans to appoint more ministers into his cabinet. I think that goes against, first of all, from the onset, his standpoint of cutting down the cost of governance, which was the reason he, had to merge some ministries and, departments and agencies just so we have less running cost and all of that. We're going to be discussing this this morning on the program. Joining me to do that is a one-time commissioner for higher education, one-time commissioner for water resources at those states, and legal practitioner. He's also a political analyst and talking about Barrister Washington Osifo. Many thanks for joining me this morning. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and then also a political analyst talking about Mr. Saze Jesobo. Many thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's start off. Let me start with Jesobo. Your thoughts when, I'm sure you heard the news, President Buhari's plan to appoint more ministers into his cabinet, also have more persons come on board, to work as against all of the cutting down the cost of governance earlier.
Well, I wasn't too surprised because for the past 2.5 years, what we have had has been a government at the federal level of inconsistencies. You see, that statement by the president actually was a matter of politics, not policy. He has looked at it after 2.5 years, and we are in this country, we have heard of all the grumblings that have been taking place at the federal level, people complaining. And recently, the Controller General of Customs came up saying that the government of Buhari had been hijacked by the campees from PDP, that over 50% of them, of those who are holding positions now, are PDP campees. And of course, his senior special assistant on social media, Ms. Loretta, I can't remember her surname now.
Onochi.
Yeah. Also made mention of it. Yesterday I was reading it on Facebook that those who ought to be the original APC members are not holding positions, and that over 50% of the positions are being held by PDP campees. So I see it as a way of flushing out those they feel are liabilities to them and bringing in new hands. And moreover, if you look at it too, the groups that came into the coalition that made up APC, CPC, ACN, AMPP, and a faction of ABGA. Many of them have been complaining, especially the ACN faction. They have been complaining that they have been left out, and that most of the appointments have also been held by the CPC members, because those were the ones that were actually closer to Buhari. So I guess what he has decided to do now is to sort of broaden the horizon, because he's conscious of the fact that by January, February, March next year, the campaigns will start. Though unofficially, the first one to get nomination, and the second one, after getting the nomination, the campaign proper. And he has come to realize that it will be difficult for him to get a second ticket if things continue the way they are now within the APC. We all know that APC, there has been so many struggles, so many oppositions within, and so many grievances. So I guess that is what he is trying to rectify now. But I just hope it is not too late.
All right. Let me come to you, Washington Osifo. Your thoughts on this when you heard of the plans by the president to appoint more ministers, more cabinet members?
Well, I think, assuming without conceding, that the reason for that is politics or not policy, and the reason for doing this is for the sake of ambition, post-2019 ambition. Assuming without conceding, that is what it is. But I think what my thoughts were when I heard it was that this is the right way to go. Why is it the right way? Policies, for instance, are not cast in stone.
Okay.
They are tested within a period of time. And if for any reason, which of course must be grounded on conviction, that it seems not to be working properly, the best thing to do, honorably, is to either reverse it completely or amend it. Your original goal is to achieve results. Now, that brings us to the reason why he gave on the surface for wanting to do this, to bring in fresh ideas, expand the Federal Executive Council by appointing new ministers to bring in fresh ideas. I want to limit this discourse from my own point of view to that.
Okay.
So that we can narrow it in these are my views, okay? Agochukwu, Nigerians have been complaining, and we have a right to complain, that achieving results has been a bit slow, particularly in the areas of power, which of course is something that can guarantee, if we're able to get it right, our economic breakthrough. You know, and even our social life, as the case may be. But you know that as it is today, if for good reasons that there were paucity of funds when oil at that time was selling, when he came on board, was as low, oscillating between $25 and $30, and even sometimes threatening to go below 25 and there was no hope that anytime soon it was going to come up better. And the appropriation bill that eventually became budget was pegged at $35 per barrel. $35 per barrel. Only by the grace of God, states were just trying to survive, managing poverty and all of that, wishing that very soon things would get better. If at that time, the man that came on board thought that the right thing to do was to cut costs in line with the realities on ground. Now today, everybody has been killing, watching the trend of the politics at the international market as it relates to oil. And what oil is doing today is about $60 per barrel. And there are prospects that it could even go, the numbers could go up by projections or all of that. And there are more savings. There are more savings. And there are positive indices. You know, talking about the economic growth and all of that, there are positive indices also confirmed by the World Bank, those who have the authority to do so and all of that. To the extent that about 2 days ago, you heard it and I heard it, and I'm aware, very many of us are also aware, that the World Bank gave a publication to suggest that Nigeria is now amongst the first 10, in the improvement, the ease of doing business and all of that. What that signals is that things are getting better. What it signals is that
in tandem with realities on ground.
Just excuse me. You know, let me tell you, whether you like it or not, there are persons who sit within and outside this country. Their responsibility is to look at those signals as they are performing. Before we got to this economic problems that we had, recession, as the case may be, it was predicted based on indices that at this time it will come because of the way we were doing things. So when we were also going to get out of it, it was also predicted ahead. Prediction gives an idea of what is to happen in the future, either near or far. This is exactly what has also happened. Those who predicted it to us that it was going to happen, that recession was coming, they have also told us, meaning that somebody's working. We saw the hard effect of the recession. However, before the recession came, nobody believed them, because there was something that has to do, we had so much to spend and to give away. So we didn't believe that it was going to come. But it caught up with us, and of course we were in it. And this class of persons, they've also told us that yes, we have gotten out of it. Then these are the indices that things will get better and all of that. Now, even assuming without conceding, you know the plain truth now, that dollar is no longer, international oil price is no longer 25. It's 60 as of today.
True.
And there are indications that it will get better. Now, that is the difference of $35 already in savings.
Okay.
Now, do you still advise, for instance, that one person should still hold on to energy, to power, which is the mainstay of our economy? If we must get it, if we get it right, then we get economy right. Do you still advise that one person should hold that ministry? Do you still advise in combination with housing and, of course, work? So look at our federal roads. Look at our federal roads. Somebody that is holding it, I think, you know, let me tell you, when you get to Abuja, you see the lineup of the buildings of the ministry. Before now, you see power, you see works, you see housing. Each building, each ministry standing on its own. The presupposition is that they also have their supporting staff, including the permanent secretaries of these ministries, because none is inferior to the other. But with what we have seen within the past 2 years, with the emergence of this locking the three together, what meant that was our leadership, okay, and that will also narrow to a large extent those who work in that ministry. Now, what it will mean is that a chunk of two permanent secretaries will be out, because it has to be one permanent secretary overseeing the affairs, just like one minister. Now, don't you think if the reason for expanding the cabinet into reality, to bring in, I mean, persons who can bring in robust ideas in this area, Nigeria wants results. Nigeria wants results.
Okay.
For once, when somebody does something, the idea should be, what was your conviction for doing it? Okay. If your conviction was to bring about, I mean, openings for the betterment of Nigeria, then when you also sit down there, it is not to lament. Your responsibility is to identify and fix. Okay. If in the course of fixing it, don't be ashamed if you think it's not working, okay? To reverse it based on what you know. You are the first to know. Based on what you know, reverse it. Not working. If you think it's not working, okay, reverse it. What we need is result. Right. And by the time, irrespective of our stand, we have a right to speak from all sides of our mouth, based on our leaning, either politically, social-wise, religious-wise, or otherwise. But the truth is that it is our liberty, we are at liberty to speak. But in speaking, we must just oppose it.
All right, let me just halt you a little bit. Let me come to you, Jiswogo. You mentioned that it's more of politics than policies. And Barrister Washington Osifo just said policies are tested within a period of time. Don't you think, you know, within this period of time, 2 years plus already for the President Buhari administration, he, you know, have looked at that policy and just maybe not heading in the right direction. So, you know, looking at going back and trying to fix it might just be what he's trying to do at this time.
Yes, when you have a policy in place and it is not working, the common sense tells you that there should be a change. And that is what he is doing. But you see, the fact is, I like the average Nigerian. In 1973, General Gowon, as head of state then, told us that money was not our problem, but that our problem was how to spend it. 2 years later, he was overthrown in a military coup, and we started saying the fact that even though we had money, our problem was not actually how to spend it. Our problem was how to manage the money we had. And the World Bank just came out with a statement a few days ago, and we are celebrating it. But you see, the indices are not on ground to the common man. And when I see those celebrating it, I look at them and I just laugh. In 2013 or early 2014, the same World Bank came up and said that Nigeria, as at that time, had the fastest growing economy in Africa. Those who are celebrating the assessment of the World Bank now, 4 years back, told us that it was not acceptable to them, that there was nothing on ground to prove that Nigeria was actually the fastest growing economy. Like I said, it is a matter of politics, because to me, that the economy is improving, the price of oil has gone up, does not mean that we should filter it away. Let me tell you, 36 ministers, and probably one from the federal capital, making it 37, are enough for us to properly govern this country. Now we have many ministries where you have minister and minister for state. Why appoint new ones when you can take from the ministers for state and give them and make them full ministers? Some ministries were merged. The ministries we have, I'm sure if we are to count them, they are not up to 36 as of today. So do we actually need minister and minister for state? The US, they have just about 5 or 6 secretaries that take care of everything. And under them, you have undersecretary, assistant secretary, and all those that takes care of sections. So I think what we need is the quality of those holding the offices now, not necessarily the quantity.
Okay.
Because it is obvious that those who are there now, things are not working with them. I agree that giving the former ministries of housing, works, and power to one person was a case of making him a jack of all trades and master of none. What I would expect is take some of these junior ministers, not necessarily these ones, even if you are going to appoint fresh ones, rather than have two ministers in a ministry. Have a minister in a ministry and take the other ones to the other ministries that you are going to separate. In so doing, you have kept the same number of ministers, but what I think he needs to do is to look at the people who are there, assess them, the quality, what have they contributed, what do you expect them to contribute in the 1.5 years or 2 years remaining, and with that, do a cabinet reshuffle. Patronage, yes, you can afford to do patronage with boss or parastatals and those other ones, but not by enlarging the executive council. Because now, if you enlarge it, the perks of the offices, the overhead, they are going to be enlarged. They are also going to be enlarged. The new ministers are going to have all the retinue of aides that they are going to have. So why not leave it at what it is? Appoint new ones, remove the dead wolves, and then get your government going. That is what I feel.
Okay.
That is what I feel. And secondly, I think that in also assigning portfolios, I'm happy now that the National Assembly has come up with an amendment that when the president is forwarding the is forwarding the names of ministers, he should also put their portfolios. Yeah, I just pray that amendment scales through, because that will also improve the quality of people you are going to have there. Because I don't see any common sense in putting a lawyer, you put him in power. Yes, granted, yes, he's educated, he's an intellectual, but what actually does he know about power? What actually does he know about works?
So you put round pegs in round holes.
Round pegs in round holes, yes.
All right. Let me just hold you a little bit. Let me come to you, Barrister Washington Osi, for two questions right now. You mentioned policies are tested within a period of time. Would you say this policy of trying to cut down costs with the president when he was coming on board, which led to, streamlining basically the ministries and trying to merge some of them, would you say, or are you saying he didn't foresee the future before doing that? Because I think this administration has seen a whole lot of policy somersaults. Go forward with this one, come back with another one. So are you saying they didn't foresee the fact that it wasn't going to work out, it wasn't going to be favorable?
No. You see, I have granted audience on issues that borders on leadership.
Okay.
And the last time I came here, I remember vividly that I told you, and through this medium to our esteemed viewers, that God forbid that I imagine that the reason for those who come to office is just to sit behind their desk in the name of whatever they parade themselves to be as leaders, and not to serve the purpose of advancing the cause of those who voted them into power.
Okay.
I said, I want to give it to them that the projections, the intention could be right, but the execution wrong. As a lawyer, my training suggests that you cannot be guilty of an act if you are not guilty of the intention. Therefore, what I seek to know when analyzing the actions of men is first to give it to them that they never intended to do wrong. That way, it is more comfortable, it is more justiciable, it is impartial and likely to get the best result because you are as plain as you can be. Therefore, I think, in line with this foundation, that when he did what he did while setting up his government, he meant well to manage costs, putting into consideration the constraints that we were at that time. Now, if the way it is today, because when I talked about what I thought were the reasons why he did what he did 2 years plus ago, and looking at the numbers of dollars coming up. But I think what is key is managing the scarce resources for the overriding interests of majority of our people, the Nigerians. Now, what is it today? Does that not suggest, for instance, if he talks about, okay, he wants to appoint more ministers, okay, does he now suggest that he has now abandoned his conviction to manage the scarce resources for the greater good of the greatest number of our people? Is that the suggestion? No. Has he suddenly now turned from that conscience to the conscience of being a squandermania because it's there, then throw it around? No. How do you see? Let me tell you.
Well, let's also match this right now that you're saying with, the reason the president gave for wanting to do this. He says it's a demand by his party members. It's been there over the months. So it's maybe not really a thing of conviction, like you're saying. Maybe it's pressure.
Now, what you also need to know, conviction in most cases are not necessarily your ideas alone.
Okay.
It takes from what happens within your environment. He is not the sole administrator. Power belongs to the people.
Okay.
Okay? The Constitution as it is today, you cannot be who you are in holding public office at that level without the ticket of your party. Therefore, no party, no position. That is what it is.
Okay.
Therefore, you sit in council as president, okay, as chairman. You sit in your party as member and leader of the party,
okay,
with other co-leaders, okay, rubbing minds together on the way forward. Now, if the demand is always there, whether at the state level, at the local government level, at the federal level, I can tell you that the demand is always there. Even within a family unit, if we set out to achieve a common goal, that let us from the beginning, when you are planning, let us. There is a presupposition that at the end of it all, we will all continue to be together.
Okay.
We will continue to send ideas to you as it were from the beginning. And if we feel not too convenient or comfortable with some of your policies, we have a right to tell you, to say, look, this was not how we started. This was not the direction. Okay, you will also tell us, because we didn't give you the power to enslave you, to take away your human rights. We give you the power, we must respect you, okay, by listening to you. So, you know, these are my constraints. We cannot do this at this time. Then at this time, you underline it. What it presupposes that a time will come when it will be necessary, it will be possible to do it. But all we now owe you is to constantly engage and remind you.
Okay.
Okay? Now, here said, by this pressure over time, he is convinced that it's the right thing to do. But it was not the right time to do it.
At a time when the country is gradually sliding out of recession, as the last statistic by the NBS, it was 0.55% growth, which is a very tiny margin. And then let's look at what the party sold to Nigerians when, you know, they were pushing to come on board, cutting down costs, making sure that national patrimony, the common interest, you know, is not being spent anyhow. Let's look at that at this time.
But let me tell you something. I'm not telling you as somebody that is outside. I've been there.
Okay.
An experience has taught me, which of course is the best teacher, that salaries and overheads are not necessarily what, you know, what takes the money of the people. Okay. No, they are legitimate earnings. Salaries and overheads are legitimate earnings, without which you cannot do the job. There are several other loopholes. And that is when you're talking about savings, these are things you are talking about.
Okay.
Okay? These are things, you see, those things that you will do that you cannot justify to the extent that when you leave office, they stare at you and you continue to hide it because you don't want people to know. These are the things that we are talking about. Okay. Not your salaries, not your overheads, okay? Not your legitimate earnings. Those ones don't stifle the nation. It does not stifle, they don't stifle the state. They don't bleed us. Okay. Those things that bleed us are things that are you know, that are born from the evil conscience of men who occupy offices. And they throw caution to the wind when they do it. Helped, you know, those who help them to achieve it are a cabal within their ministries or whatever as the case may be, who just help them to achieve that evil aim with the purpose of sharing the dirty loot. Now, at the end of it all, that is exactly what we're talking about when you talk about managing and all of that. Those few men and women who come together to say, we must achieve this ugly end. This X must not know when we are doing this. And at the end of the day, when it blows open, it becomes an embarrassment. These are the things we are talking about when you talk about saving costs. The truth is that 3 more or 6 more ministers, if we are taking it on a geopolitical zone, if bringing intellects, those who know the job and all of that, you know, you are balancing the political equation of, okay, taking out these numbers. You cannot say they are not doing well, because if you look at it, if you score them, if you talk about value driven and value added, of course the numbers are there. If you are convinced, of course, that 1 or 2 or 3 or even all of them are not doing well, flush them out and bring in new ones, okay? But when you are taking a decision as a leader, there are several variables that you put on the table. When I take this, how will it affect this? Okay. When I take this, why will it affect this? And don't also forget, the nation as it is today, it's not as, there are several problems and issues here and there. I was listening to somebody who spoke yesterday from, I think from our brothers from the East, okay, when they were saying the president, you know, has demonstrated again that he's not the father of the nation. Why? Because they were expecting, for instance, that he was going to appoint an Igbo man as the SGF. Today, he has appointed Mustafa. And for that reason, he's not. Now, you must take an action. Somebody is always willing and ready to condemn you for any reason, like I said. It could be political, it could be ethnic reasons, it could be sentiment or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But you must be seen. If you are convinced in your conscience, that's it. God gave us conscience to guide us. If you are doing it and you are convinced that what I'm doing, I mean well, I want to get the best result and all of that, that's fine and good. Now, the question is, what I'm putting to you today, Ugochukwu, and through you, through this medium, to those, these are viewers, esteemed viewers at home, is that it is not the salary. No. It is not the overhead. No. What constitutes bloating when you over-invoice? Okay. You are coming with a conscience that suggests that I'm just coming to enrich myself. And that's the only reason. And when you come, you look for your likes within your ministry or within your government. Okay. And when you speak with them, you want to convince them that this is the right thing to do, because when we get out of office, okay, you can tell. Amass wealth for not just your generation, but the generation after you and perhaps the generation to come, as if you are going to live forever and all of that. These are the kind of checks that we're talking about. Right. This is exactly what can talk about the ECOE fund. You don't get these funds from salary, legitimate. No, you don't get it from there. I know what I'm telling you.
All right, let me pause you a little bit. Let me come to you now, Jesobo. Just quickly, the idea for him is bringing fresh ideas. My question is, do we have to wait for a push from his party members to bring in fresh ideas?
Well, I started off by saying that it was politics, not policies. And his statement that you just read proved it. You see, he's wanting to bring in new people to enlarge the Federal Executive Council. From his statement, it is not actually out of his own conviction. It is because of pressure from his party. And that was why he made it very clear for the world to know that left to him, he probably would not have done that. And we have gotten to a stage where realities are now staring those in positions of authority, now elected officers. Realities are now staring them in the face that, look, the time of reckoning is near. There were promises that were made. You see, when I sit back at times in my quiet moments, I just ask myself, was this man actually ready mentally, psychologically, intellectually, and otherwise to be president of this country? For somebody who contested, who aspired to a position in 2003, 2007, 2011, and finally got it in 2015, one would have expected him to have done proper analysis, projection, looking at the past, looking at the present, and projecting into the future. And one would have expected him to have hit the ground running, because this is a position that he has spent over 12 years aspiring to. And that is a long period of time. But what did we see? Coming around to tell us that, well, because of what has happened, you should have projected on what has happened. What I expected him was that even before the election, he would have had a crack team of professionals, not ethnic partners on this, real professionals, and project into the future. There are countries that are projecting into what will happen in 20, 30, 40 years time. And their projections come out, give or take, the area of where there will be differences might just be about 1-2%. But largely those projections come out well. That to me was not done. And it also gave the impression that APC as a party never expected that they would win that election, or that the president then was going to give up easily. And so it took them by surprise, and they discovered that they were not ready for governance. And that is why we are where we are now, where all the promises they made, there's no one that had been substantially implemented. Even the security, are we better off today, security-wise, than we were in 2015? Did we have the issue of herdsmen then, as we are having it today? Yes, Northeast to an extent.
But you'd also agree everywhere around the world there are, new security challenges, even for the US, the UK,
there are new
France.
There are new security challenges. But the security challenges we are having in this country now, how are they solving them? This herdsmen rampaging, how many herdsmen, has a single herdsman been prosecuted? Are they saying they don't know who these people are? So There are challenges, security challenges, but how are we solving them? How are we solving them? That is my own thinking. And like I said before, I don't believe it is bringing in new people that we need. Remove the ministers of state. In many of the states, the ministers and the minister of states are hardly on talking terms. I'm aware that aviation and transportation, we are aware of the rift that is going on there, and so many other ministries. Why do we need a minister of state in head? Why do we need a minister of state? If you are making the aviation ministry a full ministry, make it. So what you are saying is, those ministries that have ministers of state, turn them into full ministers, retain the same number. My brother here talked of overhead, that is not, I agree, that is not necessarily what is into the government funds. But we should also accept the fact that in bringing in 6 ministers, Ministry of Works, let's assume Ministry of Works, Ministry of Power and Ministry of Housing. There are 3 ministers, 3 permanent secretaries, and all the ministers, they are going to come on board with their special assistant, special advisor, and all those things. Whether we like it or not, that will definitely increase the overhead in terms of salaries and all those things. Whereas, if you now bring in ministers of states and upgrade them, they still have the retinue of aides that they have been having. The only thing is the redesignation of their offices. Okay. They still receive their salaries as ministers. What we will now be expecting will be new permanent secretaries, new directors, but these ones too can be redeployed from the existing ministries. Okay. What they need to do at the civil service level is promotion. Promote some, redeploy some, and all. But appointing new ministers, it must increase the overhead. But my fear in this thing now, how right is the timing?
Okay, I was going to come to that. So let's just not rush it over it right now. You've mentioned timing. Let me come back to you, Barrister Washington Osifo. At this point in time where there are agitations, persons in the Niger Delta feel like they're being left out. Some parts of the Southwest feel like they're being left out. Let's not even look at the Southeast, where there's been very aggressive agitation in recent times. And looking at the timing for this, the president says, or he didn't indicate whether there would be a cabinet reshuffle, which means we're not sure ministers are going to leave. We're going to bring in new people. Bringing in new people to head, are they creating new ministries? Bringing in new people, what's the number coming in? Would some states not still feel like they're left out? Because you definitely won't go through the 36 states again picking. So wouldn't they feel like they're left out at this time?
Before I get to this, let me say something. And the beauty of history is that you can, like the law, you can twist it to favor you whenever you want, when it's convenient. Okay. We have forgotten where we were in terms of security challenges that bedeviled this country a few years ago. We seem to have forgotten what God did through this government. We were always waking up to hear stories of bomb blast at the northeast. Even Abuja was under siege, the UN building. Okay. We have forgotten that our brothers and sisters were dying in their numbers. We have forgotten that they were relocating back to the west, the east, and the south. We have forgotten that in doing that, so many of them died on the highways, not killed by bombs this time, but the threats that they might be killed in a bomb blast in the north. They were coming home. We have forgotten that today, those who came, they have returned back. Our brothers that were maimed, those who survived, they are without limb, a limb and all of that. Some of them without hands. Some of them lost their eyes. Some children lost their parents. We were in war within a supposed peaceful country. We have forgotten about all of that. Now we have forgotten today that peace has returned and business are there. We have forgotten that what led to the IDP The pains we are still carrying today and still managing was as a result of, what was happening, the huge security challenge that bedeviled us at that time and all of that. So let us not forget, even in plain politics, we must sometimes go back to the reality so that we can be grateful to God.
Okay.
Now, that takes us to what we're saying.
Timing, yeah.
The timing. The basis of my argument has always been timing. When I talked about the numbers, and I talked about the need for the greater good and achieving the best result, it's all about timing. 2.5 years policy test and all of that is timing. So what? Well,
let's look at timing in the face of, the situation we have right now where people are feeling left out.
Let me tell you, my brother.
Don't you think it would worsen it?
My brother, the foundation of my argument is conscience.
Okay.
If the reason for doing it is to bring about the greatest good for the greatest number of the people, and you are sure that you are doing this without an iota of doubt in your conscience, that you are not doing it to marginalize any group of persons, then if the focal point is getting a good result is the reason why you're doing it, the whole world will say it otherwise. But be comfortable with your conscience that you are doing it. Work towards it to get the best result, that these people will continue to be happy. In any case, it is better to take a result, to take a decision and let it be condemned than not taking a decision at all because you don't want to be condemned. Leaders are meant to be condemned. And this discourse arising from his comments to expand or bring new ministers, as the case may be, it will help him between now and when it is finalized, because he's listening. They are taking notes. How are Nigerians reacting to it and all of that? Okay? How is the party reacting to it? Whatever he will eventually do, because he's not a landlord, it will help him to take a decision, okay, that will come out to be accepted by majority of the people to be good. I tell you, some are saying, yes, this is the best thing to do. Others are saying, no, this is not the right time to do it. Now, between who is saying this is the right time and the other one that is saying this is not the right time, what shall be done? You stay at the middle? In leadership, there's no middle course.
Okay.
There's no middle course. You must take a decision.
So basically, the greater good, conscience.
Oh, there was of the greatest good for the greatest number, and conscience must guide your actions.
All right. Just about timing, you seem to have an issue with that at this point.
Yes, but before I go to that, we cannot stay run away from the security issue. Yes, to an extent, or to a large extent, peace has returned to the northeast. But we should also have it at the back of our minds that even in the midst of the insecurity in the northeast, elections were successfully held in the northeast in 2015, which means that it was not as bad as it was made to look. The Boko Haram, they have been driven to an extent, but we still hear of Boko Haram
pockets of attacks and all of that,
the exploitation. Suicide bombing in Abuja is no longer taking place, but we all know that it is still taking place in the northeast. And the current one now, the herdsmen attack. This one is not restricted to a section of the country. This one right now is nationwide. North Central, Northeast, Northwest, North Central, Southeast, Southwest, and South-South. And as at now, what has been done to curtail it? These people go about with AK-47 and all the. When I was growing up, herdsmen used to hold dagger, bow and arrow. But now they go about with AK-47. We see it on the social media. Are the security people saying that they are not aware of the existence of these people? Are they not being funded? The cows and cattle and all that they are carrying out, do they not belong to people? So that is, it has never been as bad as this right now. Kidnapping in this country right now has never been as bad as it is today. So this is security. But in terms of timing, you see, when I talked of timing, what I actually looked at is, now we are hearing that the federal government or that the president will submit the budget in the next few weeks. Is that budget going to take care of the new ministries that are going to be established now? And by the time that budget is sent to the National Assembly, what is going to happen? Are we going to, we know how long it takes normally to get a budget approved, not to talk of when you now create new ministries at this time that the budget has been prepared. Except that we are going to see that these new ministries have been taken care of. There will be bottlenecks and all these things. So I think that is the timing. And as for the patronage and satisfying the interest, there are so many ways to satisfy interest. What I think the man needs now is a change of orientation. He should reorientate himself to remove that dichotomy of 97% and 5%. That is the problem that is currently facing this country. It is not that the appointments are not many, but what people have been crying about is, what party members have been crying about is, the appointments have been lopsided. And that is what it needs to change.
Okay.
That is what it needs to change. And at the end of the day, I pray that whatever he's doing, whether we have the same political views or not, I pray that it will be in the general interest of the public. Because next year, because I can tell you, next year, there is hardly any governor, even the president, members of the National Assembly, who will have more than 20% of the time to devote to governance. And that is just the truth. Because nomination at the party level, the election proper, is what is going to take the time. And anybody who actually wants to perform, the best time to perform is the first 2.5 years.
All right. I'm going to have to hold you here just because of time. We're running out of time already. So quickly, in 1 minute, what would you suggest as the president heads towards appointing more or expanding the Federal Executive Council? What would you suggest?
Well, I think he should stick to the first reason, which is bringing up fresh ideas, robust ideas that will drive the government. I think he should concentrate on value, what brings value, what adds value. And if you don't have it, then you don't have the business serving the people. But I also want to advise very strongly on this issue of security, because this is democracy. The state is not inferior to the federal, just like the local government not inferior to the state. It is a government that runs. The challenge is we should talk less. This issue of headsmen should not form the basis for this discussion at all when you talk about national security. Reason being that the governors of the state, they are in charge of the security of the state. It's like saying Buhari should come and do something about robbery and kidnapping in states. Then you are blaming Buhari for robbery, that is taking place. You are blaming Buhari for somebody carrying AK-47 because you are headsman, somebody owned and all of that. Crime by nature are sponsored by people, okay? Those you see outside, yes, they're always there, whether petty robbery or whatever, they report to somebody. It is the sole responsibility of the governors. If I'm a governor of a state, for instance, and I see headsmen, doing all manners of things to terrorize my people, then you take that as a security challenge and deal with it. And in that state, you have laws for every state. If you cross the line of those laws, then you go in for it. You saw what happened when cattle were taken to our classrooms and all of that. The governor of the state, Godwin Obaseki, governor of Edo State, he went there, and he went to assess and all of that. Then if it becomes an issue that you must deal with, they are raping our women, killing our women. I saw that he went to, that one happened in Edo South. He went to Central when they also raped and killed a woman, in somewhere around Epoma or thereabout. He went there. It is these are some of the challenges that governors are having now. They should deal with it according to the laws of the state, overcome it, because they are surmountable. They are surmountable. They are common. These are common. They are common crimes. You understand that they are not outside the powers of what the governors can take care of, together working with the commissioner of police and all of that. There are several other security challenges that are even worse than this issue of headsmen that we're talking about. But it's just that they tend to amplify this issue of headsmen over and above other crimes that happens on a daily basis. They are not as magnified and all of that. But the question is, can the state governors, without calling on Buhari to come and deal with the issue of, for instance, in Edo State, herdsmen in Edo State, can the state governors not solve it with the laws of the state? No. This is democracy. It is a federal system. And the federal system suggests that each state has the authority and powers, politically and otherwise, to deal with issues within its boundaries and all of that. So I feel sick and tired when people complain that Buhari is not dealing with the issues of whatever. And when we do that, we throw up this dichotomy. Yes, he's a Fulani man. And because these Fulani men, they call them Fulanis, without even knowing whether they are Nigerians or not. They call them Fulanis, and because he's a Fulani man, do you think Buhari as president will sit down to say, my brothers, Fulani headsmen, go and terrorize Edo State, go and terrorize Lagos, take this cattle everywhere? We have also forgotten. That was why I said, for the purpose of history, if it's convenient with you, you quote it.
But the thing is,
before now, have you forgotten that in Port Harcourt International Airport, Cato's head airlines hostage,
okay, I remember that,
led by this same headsman who was president then. So let us not throw up what divides us. We should throw up what unites us, even at the heat of what we are going through. So that is my advice.
All right. Okay. Just as we wrap up.
Yes,
you see, as appointments.
You see, I get amused when people talk of governors and who actually in practice, who is the chief security officer in the state?
You know, I would have loved for us to have this discussion, but because of time, it will be taking us out of the focal point.
No, it's a major issue. We all know that the governors do not have control over the commissioners. So a governor cannot use talks that the governor will use to go and arrest people. So that issue, it is a federal issue, and if the blame is to be laid anywhere, it is on the desk of the president, not the governors, because they don't have control. And that is why the agitation for state police has been on and has become a recurring thing as at now.
Right. Because so can we just quickly get your advice? Can we just quickly get your advice as the president, heads to appoint ministers in just about 30 seconds, please?
It is still very clear. What you need are quality men, not the quantity. It is not increase. It is not appointing more. Look at the dead wolves, the deadlocks that are there now. Remove them, bring in new ones, and then those that are ministers of state, upgrade them to full ministers, and you still have your cabinet the way it is.
All right, thank you very much.
Even the more advanced countries, none of them has more than 10 ministers.
Thank you very much, Chiso. But just because of time, we need to take a break right now. Thank you for your time this morning, Washington Osifo. Thank you for your time. Against all odds, Chiso says here. Thank you so much for your time this morning. All right, we'll take a short pause on the program right now, and we will be right back in a very short while. If you're pretty out there, you've got the brains also. You get a chance to grab a form from his ITV Hot Legs this morning on TMI. Just stay tuned.